Well, hey there, friendships. It's your favorite dramatic disaster, back at it again. And today, I've got someone way more talented than me joining the corner. Rude, honestly. But before we dive into this fabulous interview, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you want early access, bonus content, and the occasional chaotic exclusive, head over to my Patreon for just $2 a month. Alright, let's jump in. He is making his feature film debut in the upcoming musical drama Juliet and Romeo, hitting theaters on May 9th, and he's playing the most underrated Shakespeare bro of all time, Benvolio. Give it up for the one and only Max Parker, also known as the guy who got to work with Rebel Wilson before I did. I'm not bitter, I'm just dramatically devastated. So, before we get into like all the artsy movie magic and the deep philosophical questions like, was Benvolio hot? Let's start with a little warm-up round. Pretty much just gonna get weird, throwing random questions because I refuse to make this a normal and respectable interview.
Okay,
So,
fair.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Question 1. If your life was a musical, what would the opening number be called? And how many jazz hands would you legally be required to use?
Let's see. It would have to involve Maximus or something, just because that's just the headspace I'm in, especially on the music side, and you kind of know that actually. So it would have to involve Maximus, the word Maximus. I don't know what the title would be though. And in terms of jazz hands, I'd probably say about 20 jazz hands at least.
Okay, like probably minimum requirement for everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've been cast in anything that isn't Romeo and Juliet. What is your dream role in the most ridiculous musical ever? And bonus points if it involves pirates, aliens, or like a haunted teapot or something.
Because you said pirates, I feel like if they did a Pirates of the Caribbean musical, I would frickin' slay that. Yeah, put me in that. I would kill that.
What was Orlando Bloom's character? I feel like you'd be like more along his lines. I don't
True.
I don't see you being Jack Sparrow,
Not the Johnny Depp.
but no.
No.
But definitely Orlando Bloom.
Okay, I'll take it.
All right, so the apocalypse hits for some reason, and the only thing that you can save is one movie, one snack, and one celebrity to be stuck in a bunker with. What is your survival trio?
Okay, so movie, I'd go Good Will Hunting. Snack, I'd go Okay, I'm trying to decide between candy or chips right now. That's actually really hard for me because I love everything. It'd probably have to be salt and vinegar, Miss Vicky salt and vinegar chips. And actor, could it be dead or alive?
Sure.
I feel like I'm gonna pick someone who's alive. I mean, Matt Damon's kind of cool. I go in with Matt Damon.
All right, rapid fire round. No thinking, pure unfiltered madness. Think of it like a fire drill for your brain. Answer fast. And let's see how many things we can get. Most useless skill you've mastered.
Flicking a pen in my hands.
Okay. Childhood movie that you were weirdly obsessed with.
Finding Nemo.
Random line from a movie that lives rent-free in your brain.
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. I'm gonna stall. Float like a butterfly, sing like a bee.
Okay. One thing you'd ban from every film set forever.
Carbonated drinks. That's such a bad answer. Okay, we're moving on.
Celebrity that you'd panic text if you got cast opposite them.
That I would panic to Margot Robbie.
A song that makes you instantly feel like the main character.
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. Song that made me feel main character. Fireflies, Owl City.
Okay. Which fictional character would 10-year-old you be best friends with?
That cool dude in How to Train Your Dragon, the main character in How to Train Your Dragon.
Hiccup.
Yeah.
The most dramatic thing that you've ever done over something totally minor.
The most dramatic thing I've done is probably ghosted someone.
Okay. A weird food combo that you stand by with your whole chest.
Movie popcorn with M&Ms.
Oh, those are so good.
Those are good. Wait, am I supposed to list a bad one?
I don't know. Is that weird to you?
A lot of people think it's weird, but I think it's great.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
Okay.
It's the salty and the sweet. It's so good. Last thing you Googled.
Faux, like soup. Faux place, Blorwis Village.
Okay. If you could only wear one outfit for the rest of your life, what is it?
one outfit. I mean, I'm partnered with Hugo, so I'd probably pick like one of my Hugo suits and wear it for the rest of my life.
Okay. And last rapid fire is you wake up tomorrow with a superpower. What is it, and what's the first chaotic thing that you do with it?
Invisibility, and I would, oh gosh, this could go so many different directions. I would use it to spy on someone that is definitely talking about me.
All right, now last one before we Shakespeare our way out of here. We're in 2025. What would Benvolio's Instagram bio say? And is he out here thirst trapping or just trying to keep the peace, or maybe both?
Okay, well, you kind of answered the first one. His bio would say #keep the peace. And then what was the second question?
Just like what would his whole like, is he going to be like thirst trapping in 2025, or is he totally just like a peace?
He won't. He's not the type to thirst trap in 2025. I mean, our movie is set in 1301, but I think he would still be the cautious and respectful person that he is.
All right. So now that we know your favorite childhood obsession, the fact that you'd bunker down with Chips and Matt Damon, let's get into it. Your feature film debut, Max Parker has entered the Shakespearean cinematic universe. How does it feel to be a certified period piece heartthrob?
I mean, I don't know really, honestly. I don't know. It's funny because at the time we're talking right now, the movie isn't out yet. It's out in 2 weeks, but I have no idea what's gonna happen with the film. But I think how it feels is it's surreal. It's really cool. I'm just very grateful to have even played a part in this film and to have even been acting with like Rebel Wilson, Jason Isaacs, just some like huge actors who are notable. And it was just a fantastic experience. So I don't really have a definitive answer for that because we don't know what's going to happen with the film, but it is exciting to say the least. And I think this is just hopefully the beginning of my acting career. I'm just very excited.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk Benvolio.
Yeah.
Why him? Did you connect with the can everyone just chill for 5 minutes energy? Because like that's pretty much me in every group project ever.
Yeah, he's kind of just like overly cautious, and in a way it can be annoying to, especially to people like Mercutio, who wants to fight, and Romeo, who's just trying to find love. I think every different character in this story, obviously because we know the Shakespeare story, they all have a different motive, and I think Benvolio at the end of the day is just cautious and wants the best for people, so he doesn't disregard Romeo's search for love, but he also is like, this is kind of, I don't know, like, what are we doing here? So nothing can ever really get in the way of love, as we know. But yeah, he can come off as annoying, but I think in this film specifically, this type of Benvolio that our director wrote, he's just more, it's more of like an inner turmoil, instead of like an outward thing all the time. You really kind of see the facial expressions and the physicality in Benvolio in this, and I really tried my best to portray that on screen and show how much was happening inside of him, because he feels like the world is on top of his shoulders. If something goes wrong, he feels like it's his fault at the end of the day, which it really isn't. But that's just the role. That's who Benvolio is. So yeah.
Yeah. So like you said, you are acting alongside Rebel Wilson, Jason Isaacs, Dan Fogler, Rupert Everett, and Sir Derek Jacobi. Literal icons. What was it like being on set with them? And did you ever just pause mid-scene and think, am I hallucinating?
So yeah, that reminds me of one scene we had to do. We were well into filming at this point. Like we were 2 months into filming. It was pretty normal, like, and natural kind of going to set at this point and shooting in front of cameras and stuff. But we had to do a very small scene with Jason Isaacs, and I can't say what we did, but I just remember being so nervous because this was like the one scene I was actually with him, and it was just this very small thing. We had to draw swords, but I just remember being so scared that like I was gonna do the wrong thing, and he was gonna get mad that we had to do the scene over again. But that didn't happen, obviously. We all crushed it, and it's funny, I will say all the stars are genuine human beings, you know what I mean? Like that was something I came around to realizing right away. Jason Isaacs at the very start of filming, he came in like the makeup trailer and I was there, and he was just like asking around like who plays tennis, because he loves to play tennis, right? And does that on his off time, like when we're not filming it. And he was like, who plays tennis? And I raised my hand. I'm like, I play tennis. You know, I was nervous there. That was like my first interaction ever with him. But he was like, sure, let's pick a date when we're both not filming and let's go play tennis. And it's just amazing to realize that these stars and these super famous actors are really just like genuine, down to earth human beings. And you know, it really that was something that really kind of took me back in a good way. I was just like, we're all just humans, you know, we're all just like collectively trying to make a great film. And I think in a way, him asking around like who plays tennis or who wants to do things like outside of just like filming is a great way to like connect all of us and just bring us closer. And he's a great human for that, you know? So yeah, the experiences off set were just as great as the experiences on set, and it made all of our bonds stronger.
Take me back to your audition. Were you singing, dramatically monologuing, crying in iambic pentameter? What's going on?
The audition process was kind of intense. You know, I actually had ample time to prepare for it, but I actually, fun fact, auditioned for Romeo first. They handed me the sides for Romeo, and they did that for everyone. So anyone who became, you know, another role in the film would audition for Romeo first, and then from there they would then start filtering out their actors. So they auditioned everyone for Romeo and Juliet, and then they would just filter. So I went for Romeo, and, you know, in the back of my mind I was like, there's probably no way I'm gonna be Romeo. I did the best I could, and I didn't even think about what was next, which is great because you don't know what's gonna happen next in that moment. And I think casting just realized that I had more of a knack for playing like just a bit more nervous, if that makes sense. And so they gave me a call back and they were like, let's have you read for Benvolio. And I was like, okay. I don't know, like I had to do my research. It was like, oh, like it's been a minute since I've like really done the whole Romeo and Juliet thing. It was since like grade 9, you know, we were like raising our hands in class, like, you know, reading these lines in grade 9. So it had been a minute. So I had to, you know, research like, okay, Benvolio's role, like what's the role, like what's the background and everything like that. And I just remember it came so natural for me to play Benvolio and to just like not be stiff, because you should never be stiff as an actor, and that's not really the right term for him, but it's more so just being on your toes a lot and playing that in a way where, you know, he might be breathing heavy, he might be just like showing a lot of concern. And yeah, that just came natural to me because I was able to find more of a part of me in Benvolio in the audition process. But as much as there were lines I had to read for, they also wanted me to sing 2 songs. So I went against the grain a little bit, because a lot of people tell you not to sing a Dear Evan Hansen song for a musical audition, but I decided to sing Waving Through a Window, and I went for it and I crushed it. I sang that one, and then I also sang Rewrite the Stars. And I just remember getting an email from my agent saying that the director absolutely loved my version of Waving Through a Window. And I think to this day, that's still an on-camera grab that really I look back on, even though I did it like 3 years ago, I still look back at that and get emotional even watching it back, because I just remember practicing for that so long. Like I took 2 weeks to like memorize like all the lyrics, and just I was going so crazy to the point where I had to have it on the back of my hand and not even worry about like remembering anything and just kind of being in the moment on camera. And I put a lot of work into that, and I just remember it coming out so beautifully and just being emotional and like almost crying while I was editing the whole audition tape. So, you know, I haven't had too many moments like that in my life, but I just remember feeling something in my chest and being like, I might have this in the bag. And I just remember that the singing process of the audition was my strong suit, because I am a musician first. That's something that I knew I had to really bring to the table. You know, not to say that my acting is not good. It's just that, like, you know, I am a singer first. So I knew that was something I could offer a lot more. And I guess I did. So that was the whole process. And it was intense. It happened really fast when I had to kind of hand everything in, but that's just kind of the way it goes. But yeah, pretty thrilling.
I can only imagine. So like you said before, when, you know, getting offered the lines to read for Benvolio, you said that you had to research him again. How many times did you actually have to Google who the hell is Benvolio before day one?
Before day one of filming, I mean, not too many times, because I did remember the story well from grade 9, because I was someone who, I mean, I was taking theater through high school, so that started in grade 9 and finished in grade 12, and when I was in grade 9, I think I had theater first period, and so when I had English second period, I was still in a theater mindset, and so when we were doing Romeo and Juliet, and we were doing that term in that class, it just came naturally to raise my hand and read lines like I would in the theater doing drama class. So it just kind of folded in on itself in the best way. And I read all the lines for Romeo because I just wanted to. I mean, most of my class was shy. You know, not many people in English class really want to do that. But I was one of the few who was coming from drama, and I just kind of wanted to be involved and to keep kind of working on that side of things. So in doing that and in being really involved in grade 9, I remembered most of the story and remembered who Benvolio was after I had to search him again. When I kind of reread it, I was like, okay, you know, I remember everything now. I remember, like, he was the peacekeeper, he was trying to hold everything together, and then everything kind of folds over on him, even though it was never really his fault to begin with. So I remembered that. And I really didn't have to look him up again, because when we got the script, when I got cast, you know, it was easy to just like read through that script and understand what type of Benvolio I'm going to be playing in this one, because, you know, our rendition is a little different, but yeah, I mean, not too far different from the original story, but it just came naturally when I was reading through the script, and yeah, it was just easier to kind of follow the script strictly instead of kind of trying to use, you know, sources that, you know, really didn't have to do with our rendition.
So now that we've proven that you're officially Benvolio certified, let's get into the fun stuff. The set chaos, the on-set secrets, the behind-the-scenes gossip I'm legally obligated to extract from you for the sake of the viewers. What was the vibe on set like? More Broadway energy or chaotic family barbecue with wings?
I would say chaotic family barbecue with wings for sure. We all had so much energy. That's for sure. And naturally, you know, there are people who gravitate towards others, and, you know, there were so many like 20-year-olds on this set, so it's like there's going to be a lot of immaturity, and like that's just the way it goes, you know. And we all had fun, and you all have like your people, and I think everyone in cast can even agree with what I'm saying right now. And yeah, that's just the way things roll. But for the most part, it was great. Things could get overwhelming. Like, we started filming in December of 2022, and so when it got really close to Christmas break, a lot of us were kind of at the tail end. Like, we were feeling like we just wanted to get to break, and we had to do this whole like big dance number for this film, and that was on like the last couple days before our break. And I just remember all of us being absolutely exhausted, you know. Yeah, all of us were so exhausted to the point where we just wanted to like stab each other's eyes out, you know. Like, it really got to that. Not like realistically, but just metaphorically speaking, we were exhausted, and we deserved a break. But all of us were respectful with one another. Even if there were people who didn't gel with others, that's natural. That's going to happen on any set, and that's something that I had to learn as like a first-time actor on screen. And yeah, I mean, I journaled a lot through my process, and I think that's something that every actor should do. Reading was something that I did a lot offset, like in the trailers and stuff, while I had to wait, because, you know, 75% of acting is waiting, and that's what a lot of people don't tell you, is that you're only on set and shooting for like a quarter of the time you're really there. So, you know, I had to really understand how I could best use my time waiting on my own, and understanding if I had enough energy to hang out with others in like the trailers and stuff even before going to set, or if I had to conserve my energy. A lot of that's actually most of the job as being an actor, is when to know when to save your energy to actually like provide a good performance for the camera, or if, you know, if it's like a night where you don't have like too much going on for what you need to shoot, you could kind of spend a little more time with cast and hang out with, you know, your friends and stuff like that. So, you know, that's a lot of it too, and it was just a great learning experience all around for me. Yeah.
Not to have it as like a negative connotation, because I feel like this word has a lot of negativity attached to it, but who had the biggest like diva moment on set? And yes, it can be you.
I don't think I had the best diva moment, like, especially because sometimes when I was, like, not filming, I even felt like I was still, like, Benvolio a little bit, you know what I mean? And Benvolio's a little bit more quiet, but is just worried. So I don't think the diva came out of me. If I try to think of who it would have been, I mean, Nicholas, who plays our Mercutio, and Ferdia, who plays Tybalt, they honestly brought the diva energy because, you know, those two have to fight, obviously. Like, that's how the story goes in Romeo and Juliet, the original story, and we keep that similar through our film. But, you know, Mercutio's supposed to be, you know, extravagant and big, and, you know, the expressions on his face and the way he composes himself has to be grand. And so I think naturally when you're playing someone like that, you're probably going to bring some of those traits that you're playing on screen offset as well. And I saw a lot of that in Nick, and there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I think I'd say like Nick or Ferdia brought, you know, that diva energy, you know, and they were really close. Like, those two were really close, and they had a lot of fun. So yeah, I'd say them too.
Okay. Funniest moment on set. Like, I'm talking bloopers, wardrobe fails, dance mishaps.
I mean, I think there were like a couple of falls while we were dancing, and, you know, we just had to cut and reshoot. But we would actually be like worried for someone if they fell, you know what I mean? But I'm trying to think. The bloopers really happened when we were practicing choreography, like when we weren't shooting. And we took 3 weeks in Rome to, you know, do stunt training, choreography training, singing, everything like that. When someone like had a misstep or just forgot where they were supposed to be in the choreography when we were practicing it in Rome, that's when we would laugh. But we couldn't really afford to laugh when we were on set because we didn't really, like, we were on a bit of a time constraint, you know, like we didn't have all the time in the world to like get bloopers and like kind of like, you know, mess around here and there. Like, we kind of had to get the shots like in a certain time frame. So yeah, I'd say when we were practicing and we were rehearsing in Rome, we had a lot more fun there. I mean, not to say we didn't have fun on set, like we definitely did. It's just laughing and like having those blooper moments felt like it was more inclined to the rehearsals.
Now, do you get a solo number in the film? And if so, are we talking emotional powerhouse or like a full belt your feelings with like sparkles moment?
I will say I don't have a full like solo moment, you know, like singing a whole song, but I am on a handful of songs on the soundtrack, and, you know, I have lines here and there, and I'm definitely sprinkled through the film. And I have a full scene with Romeo. That's what I can say. But no, unfortunately, not like a whole like inner monologue or anything like that. But maybe if we do 2 more films, if this first one does well, that's the hope. I hope I can you know, get one of my own scenes or one of my own songs. I'm rooting for that, so let's hope.
All right, so now this isn't your grandma's Romeo and Juliet. This film is, what I've read anyways about it, is that it's based on the real story that actually inspired Shakespeare's version. So basically this is like the prequel that nobody knew that they needed. So is this more inspired by true events, like every horror movie swears it's based on a real story, or is it just like taking small aspects and just really expanding them while keeping some of the traditional tropes that you spoke of earlier?
We do set this movie in 1301, and we keep the time period the same. So, and the costuming and just the visual effects are beautiful. I mean, we shot at real locations and at real castles in Italy. So, you know, there's not a whole lot of CGI in this film, like, at all. So, like, a lot of other films do that, but these are just like real shots, which is really awesome. And that, I think that's what's going to make this film stand out, along with the fact that yes, we are doing this in a 1301 time period, but we're grabbing modern pop songs, modern original pop songs. I will say it's not even a jukebox, it's like real like pop hits that we're like fusing with this old original story. And that's the first time that has ever been done with Romeo and Juliet, and I think that's what's going to make it special. I can't really say anything else in terms of like what happens in the narrative. There are definitely awesome surprises, but I cannot go into that, so the viewers will just have to wait and see.
Now, you've also mentioned that Benvolio's role in this is still very much the peacemaker of everyone. Are there changes to his character, though? Obviously, without going into everything, but are there still changes to him that will keep audiences who know the stereotypical Benvolio from the book and the play and all the other iterations of him to show that he is like this different character for this film?
Yeah, that's a hard one to answer. I mean, this version of Benvolio is fairly relatively the same as the Benvolio that we do know, except like I said earlier, there is more of like an inner dialogue. Even if he's not saying things, you can kind of see that the way that he's composing himself and the way that he's watching what's happening, you know, he's just worried like all the time. And you know, that is the Benvolio we know, but I think in this one we really get a sense that he takes things to heart a lot, and he's just worried that everything that's unfolding is on him. You know, and pity is not the right word, but I think he just holds a lot of weight, if that makes sense.
So what is one thing that you hope audiences are going to walk out of the theater thinking besides that your cheekbones can cut glass?
I don't know how true that statement is, but walking out of the theater, I would just hope that, one, they love the songs, because the songs elevate this film by 10. They really do. I hope that they're going to be singing the songs walking out and remembering the songs like weeks after. That's what we're most excited about, or at least that's what I'm most excited about. You know, the soundtrack is releasing in tandem with the film, and I'm on a few, so, you know, they're going to be released with my name on them, which is awesome. Just maybe like a love for the story and a love for the way we show it. You know, it is different. It is different. It is the same, but it is different. So that's all I can say. So I hope that they're going to be excited and maybe anticipating more.
So like you said, again, this version does flip a lot of expectations. Was there a moment in the script where you were like, oh, okay, we're doing that now? Again, you don't have to go into detail.
There was like a smaller scene that I had to do with Mercutio and Tommaso that you'll see in the film, and I remember that being not a shock to me. Like, I knew that was a scene in the movie and in the script, but I just remember our director Tim kind of taking it and turning it a little bit once we got to set for it, and that scared me a little bit, because usually I'm by the book as an actor, and you know, improv on my end is obviously something I've trained for actually in the past like year. I did an improv. I've done a lot of improv classes, and I have a better strength with that now. But at the time, when Tim was saying, okay, we're actually going to take it here, and we're going to do this, and here's what the blocking is going to be, like the change of that was something that like scared me a little bit, because I'm like, oh, we're not doing what exactly the script says. So that kept me on my toes, but I definitely learned a lot that night shooting that specific scene. But I think it came out great because at that point of the film, things are very heightened. So yeah, the viewers will see that.
Now, if the real Romeo and Juliet saw this version of their story, what do you think their reaction would be? Shocked? Jealous? Filing a copyright claim?
I think I don't know how to answer this question pretty well, but I think they'd be satisfied.
Okay. You know what? I think we leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay, so if this movie had a tagline that wasn't approved by marketing, like the real chaotic version, what would it be?
I'm trying to think of this. I would just say, love is in the air.
Love is in the air.
Whatever. Love is in the
air. Okay. You're gonna have to skirt around this one. So I'm really intrigued to see how you're going to answer this. If you could pitch a follow-up film in this universe, any character, any time period, any genre, what is your wildest spin-off idea?
I would want to get away from, you know, obviously this original story is Romeo and Juliet, but I would want to shed light on, maybe it's not Benvolio, but some supporting role, maybe following a backstory there and seeing what happens, because not everyone dies, as we know in the original story. So following someone and seeing what their reaction would be even after the fact, and then maybe possibly falling in love with someone else, maybe following just like a different love story with a different view.
Okay. You could even be like the Nick Fury of the whole Shakespeare. The peacemaker in every movie.
Like a whole Romeo and Juliet multiverse, yeah.
Alrighty, so let's talk about The Mask I Wear. That was just released. Now, even though you're not on it, or at least the Spotify credits don't show that you're on it, the number hits hard. And it plays such a crucial emotional role in the story. As an actor, what was it like performing in and like around that moment in the film?
Well, yeah, I mean, I will say The Mask I Wear is definitely a moment for it's a very feminist moment, which I think is awesome. You know, like we're really shedding light. I mean, this movie is called Juliet and Romeo. Like, we have flipped the names around for a great reason, and I think in this film we do show the female struggle, especially what it was like probably in 1301, and how hard it would have been to even just be a woman in that time period. So I think in that sense that also elevates the movie by 10 too. And the fact that we're getting these emotions in The Mask I Wear in this song with all of our huge like female stars who are singing this song, I think it's just incredible to really have audiences understand, like, yes, this is what it would have been like 1301 for women, and the struggle that they would have had to go through, and having to hold up a mask all the time. I think it's a very beautiful and poignant moment in our film, and I have nothing to do with that moment. Like, like Romeo doesn't, like no one else really does. It's just the fact that we show this struggle and we really make it more apparent. That's really what that moment is. It's not really for the male roles. It's devoted to the female perspective.
If we can try and get it to be in a way about Benvolio, what do you think his version of that would have looked like?
That's interesting. I mean, as much as The Mask I Wear is you know, for that female perspective, if it was flipped for Benvolio, I think it would actually work pretty well, because in a way Benvolio is a little bit reserved. He's more reserved, actually, as opposed to other Benvolios that have been played in the past. And I think in him holding back words and him holding back what he's feeling inside, there is an internal battle, and I think in a way he is holding up a mask and is dealing with a lot of stuff internally. So yeah, that does kind of act as a cover-up in a way, and I feel like Benvolio would definitely relate to that a lot. I think a lot of it for the original Mask I Wear, you know, these women are going to war with themselves, but I think Benvolio's going to war with himself too, because he doesn't want war. Like, that's the point for him. So, you know, I think it would work. It would work, but you know, obviously it's so far different, you know, and you can't really compare that when our first single is really devoted to a feminist approach. But yeah, I think it would work.
All right, so we've tackled Shakespeare, spilled some behind-the-scenes tea, and peeled back the layers on this reimagined romantic roller coaster. Now it's time to see where your dramatic instincts really belong. We're going to play a game, and I'm calling it Stage or Screen. So this game is where I'm going to pitch you the most unhinged scenarios, and you tell me whether they deserve the spotlight of a live stage or the over-the-top glory of the screen. Is it giving standing ovation or direct-to-streaming fever dream? A dystopian reality show where the contestants compete to survive in a city that has turned into one giant maze of dangerous and collapsing buildings.
I'd say screen for that too.
A werewolf who has the ability to control other people's nightmares and must use that power to save the town from an ancient curse.
That's got to be screen for sure.
Superhero team where every member has the power to control one thing, but it's totally useless stuff like controlling paper clips or the speed of elevator doors.
That feels more stage.
Okay. A pirate crew stuck in the Bermuda Triangle who are secretly being controlled by a magical talking compass, and they must find their way out before the compass's battery dies.
I want to see good animation on, or CGI on that, so I'd say screen.
Okay. A zombie rom-com where two people fall in love while trying to survive the apocalypse, but the biggest obstacle is that one is alive and the other is a zombie.
Ooh, that's giving like The Last of Us vibes. I would say screen.
An elite group of spies must infiltrate a top secret base, but every security guard is also a professional breakdancer.
I think that would be really fun on stage.
A family comedy where the dad is a superhero who must juggle saving the world with helping the kids with their school projects, and his superhero costume keeps getting smaller.
That stage.
And do a couple more. A spy thriller set in an underwater city where the hero has to take down a villain who's somehow always on vacation.
Ooh, I'd put that to stage.
Last one. A group of bikers race against the clock to stop a nuclear meltdown, but all their bikes have been cursed to act like they're an old school cartoon.
That would be interesting on screen.
Alright, so you knew this was coming. We've been friends for too long for me to sit here and keep this interview entirely professional. I've seen receipts, the drama, the questionable fashion phases. It's time to debut a brand new segment that I'm calling Cue the Clownery, where professionalism politely exits stage left, and I remind my guests that being my friend means that there's nothing off limits, especially not even your most roastable moments. So, be honest, how many takes did you ruin by screwing up, messing up, laughing at your own lines like a giddy theater kid who just discovered improv?
How many times did I screw up? I mean, it's been a while since we filmed, so this probably won't be the correct answer, but probably 2 or 3 times, though, over like 3 months of filming, you know, and it happened with others too. It happens, you know, it's natural.
On a scale from slightly moody method actor to full-blown Shakespearean meltdown over the wrong brand of hummus, how dramatic were you behind the scenes?
I'd say I was like 45-50% dramatic, you know? I think we all were, to be honest, but I think I definitely had more moments where I was super dramatic and I would kind of stay closed off a little bit because I had to conserve energy. But yeah, as you know, I'm a Virgo, so I have to like make sure my energy bar is kind of top notch so I can actually like do the good work. I'd say I was dramatic here and there.
Now, can you please care to explain to anyone who watches this why you didn't help get me cast as suspicious town person number 4? Was it jealousy? Was it a fear of being upstaged?
Maybe fear of being upstaged, actually, yeah.
Fair. Okay, so if we were cast in a Shakespeare play together, who would we play? And why am I clearly the sassy horse that someone rides on and immediately falls off of?
Why could I see you as Hamlet?
Hamlet? Oh, Lord. Okay, well, so as both a musician and now an actor, which medium between the two gives you more opportunities to be a menace to your own dignity?
I'd say music, for sure. I feel like I have more freedom with music, and I'm working on a new project. Lots of new projects, but the one I'm thinking of right now is definitely out there, and you know it involves like personifications of feelings and stuff. So it's like it's that music for sure over acting. I think acting is more confined. You kind of get the script and you're supposed to kind of work within that world. And we've heard countless stories of famous actors like doing the craziest stuff on set, and sometimes that stuff gets put into the movie, but I think you can't really do that all the time as an actor. You kind of have to like stay within the lines and kind of break them here and there. But with music, you can just do whatever. Even the songs that are releasing today, some of them are just like the craziest things ever, and they chart, and people want to hear something new and something fresh. And, that's what I'm working on right now with my music.
Okay, so speaking of, we're going to switch gears and actually talk about your music. Because, like I said, not only are you out here serving Shakespeare realness on screen, but you've also got a music career that's deep, personal, and probably made at least 3 people cry into their oat milk lattes. So, you dropped 2 singles back in 2018, a single in 2019, your debut album in 2021 called 17, and a single in 2024. Now you're currently writing and producing your next album yourself. What inspired this new project?
I think, funnily enough, I think the film actually really inspired what I'm working on now. I remember coming back in 2023, the SAG strike had happened, which was kind of crazy because I thought the acting was really going to take off with lots of more auditions as soon as I came back from my first film, which was my first cut ever as an actor, which, I thought it was just going to kind of get busier on the acting side, at least for audition's sake. And it just got totally like kiboshed because of this strike. So I had to pivot and figure out what I was going to do. And, music's beautiful because as a musician, the music is always going to be there for you, especially if you know how to produce a song and create music. So that's something I already knew how to kind of do. And I think 2023 for me was a big year on learning how to produce songs and how to produce them better. So a lot of the songs that are going to be on this next album, which, you know, is still taking its course, were made on my own, you know, in this basement studio. So I had a lot of time on my hands after coming back from the film because I had taken a leave of absence from university because I am a university student still. And I was just very blessed with that time that I had to just work on music while there was a strike happening for acting. So, you know, music is great because if acting isn't working, it always not acts as a fallback, but it's just like I can always do music in between anything that I'm working on outside of it. So that's the beauty with that. And yeah, I feel like I have a lot of material that's ready to go, a lot of material that I'm finishing up, that I've just started. The album is definitely still in process, you know, because it is busy rolling out this film right now. You know, we're less than 2 weeks away from Juliet Romeo to be released in theaters. So one thing at a time for me. I have one more year of school before I graduate. So just trying to kind of get the things that are kind of more of a priority for me a little bit out of the way. And I feel like once I'm out of school and, you know, once this movie's out and things are kind of really, you know, going, I'm just really excited to kind of roll this album out in tandem with what I hope is going to be a very fruitful next 5 to 10 years of my life. I'm hoping for the best.
So now, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the theme of this new album that you're working on is really powerful, being themes of like fighting your inner demons, finding your identity, moving from the darkness into the light. Did that concept hit you all at once, or was it something that you developed over time and just kind of kept adding more and more?
It was something that I was actually unconsciously really creating it, to be honest. When I came back in 2023 and I was making all this music on my own, you know, I was just making songs to make songs. I wasn't really even thinking about an album. I was just thinking singles and just like one song at a time. And it came to a point where I was really sitting in a lecture during school, and I think in 2024, and I remember just sitting in my film lecture, and I don't know if you've ever had this feeling, but you know, it kind of internally felt like a spotlight was coming on me. You know, it felt like a main character moment a little bit, and all of a sudden I was just, instead of, you know, typing out lecture notes from my professor who was giving a lecture, I just all of a sudden just like transitioned into typing out the themes of this concept album that were just like slowly arising, and I just found myself writing like, you know, 2 pages of ideas that were just spilling out of my head out of nowhere. And that doesn't happen to me a lot, but it did in that moment. And I just remember, you know, the lecture room didn't feel like a lecture room. It just felt like it was just me and my computer. And yeah, I was just kind of on my own in that moment, and you know, I had realized that all the songs that I was creating had a narrative through it, and it was genuinely one of the coolest experiences I think of my life, obviously outside of the film. And I just remember telling myself, like, I have to act on this. This is crazy. Like there's something here, and it involves like superpowers. It involves, you know, a lot of like emotional conflict and just the way we process things in our own minds. And I think it will be very relatable when I have it ready and I put it out. It's going to be different than you know, my works from 2021 and earlier, but I think people are going to appreciate it a lot more and appreciate the fact that I kind of stepped out of bounds of what I normally do. And in a way, that's just me maturing and growing as well as an artist in general. So I'm just really excited for that next stage, whenever that's going to be. But I hope to be throwing out maybe a single or 2 this summer or in the fall. So yeah, you'll start to get a gist of what this next project's going to sound like really soon.
Do you find that it's harder to be more vulnerable in music than in acting, or are they both kind of just different ways of saying, here's my soul, please don't step on it?
Yeah, I think it's always an uphill battle trying to be vulnerable with the music, because sometimes you can kind of get redundant in making like the same sounding song, or just like not really actually accessing your true emotions and not providing like your real vocal to the microphone, if that makes sense. I think a lot of musicians can get caught up in like how a song sounds instead of like what the vocal makes you feel or what like a certain thing in that song makes you feel. And so I've gone through a lot of that, making music on my own recently. I'm trying to find different ways to go about that. But for acting, I think it's much more easy to be vulnerable, especially if you're doing like a sad scene in acting and you have to maybe not cry on command, but just be sad. It's easier to kind of channel a time in your life before when you were like really depressed or down. Whereas in music, you could do the same, but you're not playing that in front of a camera and you're not playing that in front of an audience, really. You kind of have to really grab that feeling in the moment on your own sometimes. Because I'm making music on my own, it's harder to do that when maybe no one's in the room with me, or even when there's only one person in the room with me. Sometimes it feels harder to do that with a select few people than in an auditorium of a bunch of people, or in front of like a bunch of cast and crew who are watching and hoping they get the right take. So it's different. It really is. But I think it's harder with the music.
Now, do your acting and songwriting aspects of your life ever blend? I mean, aside from this film, like, do you ever write lyrics and think, oh, this would be a killer monologue if I was in a drama about like sad robots or something?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it always does, honestly. I mean, there have been auditions as of recent where I have to sing, and that always comes in handy, even just outside of the film. Like there's just a lot on the acting side that's coming up where they're asking in the slate, like, do you sing? And I can confidently say, yes, I do sing. And I'm even taking like dance lessons right now too, to try and do more musical theater stuff. So I think the singing is always helpful for acting, and I think the acting is also helpful for the singing. I wouldn't have been able to even personify my emotions in this new album I'm working on if it wasn't for all these auditions I've been doing and different characters that I am. Like a lot of the times when I go and audition for someone new, I go and tape in a studio with a coach, and I'm walking down a random street in Toronto, and I'm trying to embody a character that I'm not, and I do that often. Like I have to play someone different like every week, and it's interesting when you come to the microphone as a musician and you can ask yourself, I wonder how I can like make my voice sound different and make a new character arise from it. Like could we make a new character that's not just like me, and could we involve different things in a song? And so I've been asking myself those questions a lot more because of the sides that I've had to read for auditions and everything on the acting side. So they work hand in hand. I mean, Zendaya is a very good example of that. She sang a lot of songs when she was younger. She's got bangers, and she's a phenomenal actress. Jared Leto is a good example. He is in 30 Seconds to Mars with his brother. He tours the world. They have fans who sometimes actually don't even know that he's an actor. And then he's like in these TV shows and he's in these movies, and he's also just as phenomenal in them. So I think you could probably say for him it helps both, like to even have a presence on stage and to know how to perform for a camera and also perform for people. Like it really does go hand in hand. So yeah.
Okay, so without spoiling too much, what kind of sounds or emotions can people expect from your new album?
I'd say there's definitely a lot more angst. If you picture like a fusion of 21 Pilots with In Excess, but also with a bit of 1975, that's really kind of in the wheelhouse of, I guess, references. The distortions turned up a little bit. There's a little bit more rock to the pop, so yeah, there's more of a fusion there. My voice, I think, is really pushed more than ever. I didn't necessarily play it safe on my last album, but it's just a lot more mainstream than what I'm doing now. So, prepare to hear a lot more rasp in my vocals, prepare to hear me push for higher notes, prepare to hear guitars that are wailing, synths that are roaring. The word roar, I think, is a good word for what I'm working on right now. Crown is a great word. Claws are a great word to kind of associate how it would sound. So yeah, I'm very excited for it.
I can definitely attest to it being a vastly different sound.
Yeah.
And yeah, from what I've heard, I think people are actually really going to enjoy it a lot, for sure.
Thank you.
So when the album finally does drop, are we going to be expecting a tour, a visual album, a rooftop concert where you force me to perform background vocals with zero rehearsal? What's gonna what's gonna go on?
I think, I really want to show, I really do, it sounds cheesy, but I really do want to show how I've actually felt the past couple years, especially after doing the film. I felt like I was definitely lost in a bit of a void when I came back, because it was a fairy tale moment being in Italy for 4 months shooting this film, and I was hoping it was never going to end, and it did, unfortunately, and that's the way it goes. But I just remember, honestly, being depressed when I was back and figuring out what was going to happen, and realizing that I had to wait a while. It's been like 3 years now, and this movie is just coming out. So while that happens, I think I just really want the rollout of the album when it happens to show who I truly am. Because as much as the first album was a great one in my opinion, I will be honest, a lot of the songs on the album were love songs, and sometimes they were love songs that were experiences that I didn't even experience. They were moments that were made up, and a lot of writers and musicians go through that and write about that in what they think love is like, or what they hope love is like. I just really want to showcase what's going on in my mind. What type of war is happening internally when I'm not doing well. I think that's really a good way to kind of explain what I'm trying to go for. And it can be chaotic, it can be sad, it can be lonely, really lonely. Like, that's a really good term to use for this, because I really did feel like there were a lot of moments where I was just on my own. I had to figure out not only how to navigate outside and in this world, but like internally, and how to mentally feel better. I just think visually, with like music videos, I want to showcase more of a main character moment, but in the best way, like in a way that's gonna make a viewer go, I feel that too. That's how I feel. That's the point of this new album, is like, I want to make sure that the viewers and listeners are gonna go, this is exactly how I'm feeling, and he's portraying it like exactly how I'm picturing it in my mind. Like, that's it. I just want to connect more with my fans this time around.
Honestly, even hearing like your concept and how the album kind of flows from start to end, and everything that you're basically throwing at it, it paves a very good pathway to it being almost like a visual album as well, almost like what Melanie Martinez did for her K-12. Like, it literally could be an entire film itself on its own. And I think, I'm just saying, but I think you should probably lean heavy into that when it does come out, because I think people will resonate and appreciate it even more if they have almost like while it's real things that you want them to feel, I think seeing it almost presented in a fantasy-esque, like super over-the-top fantasy kind of way is gonna really hit hard with a lot of people too.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about it. Even if they're just extended music videos, I'm still brainstorming all of that and trying to figure out how best to navigate that side of things. But yeah, I want it to be visually heavy, and I think that's why the album is taking a long time too. I'm not finished the songs, but I think when I'm finished the album itself sonically, I think it's gonna take a long time to understand how I can gel the visual together and really make that side cohesive as well. So unfortunately, I don't know when this album is going to roll out, but I really want to make sure I take my time with it and make sure that when I do release it, everything's ready to go. I don't want to be in a position where I'm rolling things out and I'm like rushing to get everything done. I really want to take my time, and hopefully through like acting and like landing more roles, like kind of having that act as like a cushion to, in between that work, keep understanding how best to present it and how best to collaborate with other filmmakers and people who know how to grab like stills and videos to really like generate a solid team for this and to just make it great. It's a type of album where I can't half-ass it. Like, I have to go all the way, and that's why it's going to take time. But I'm really excited on where it's headed, and I can't wait for the day when it's all said and done and it's ready to go. So yeah.
All right, well, Max, thank you for letting me publicly roast you, maybe gently threaten you about being in your next project, and emotionally interrogate you for the past hour or so. I am very proud of you, even prouder that I get to say that I knew you before you were Benvolio famous. So, final questions. Where can the people follow you, stalk you respectfully, and pretend they discovered you before Hollywood did? And do you have any last words for your fans or future fans or just random internet strangers who just found out that you exist?
Okay, so you can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. That's all at Max Parker Official. I'm heavily on Instagram, so shoot me a DM if you're watching this and you want to reach out. I usually answer. That's just the type of person I am, and I'd love to connect. And if I had anything to say to anyone watching who, I don't know, is looking for, maybe not looking for advice, but looking for advice, I don't know. I would just say, if you have a dream, work towards it. Never lose sight of it, because we all have dreams. And I just think, especially in this day and age, we all deserve to fight for them. So if you truly want to do something and you want to be great at a said thing, there's nothing stopping you. There's also people out in the world who would be so happy to be a part of it too. That's also something that's very true. Just as cheesy as it sounds, don't give up. I've thought about giving up so many times in my career, and I'm here. So seriously, just keep going and don't look back.
So, well, to everyone with eyeballs and taste, run, don't walk to see Juliet and Romeo in theaters May 9th. Support this beautiful, talented menace of a man. He is serving art, drama, and, again, cheekbones sharp enough to file your taxes.
Thank you so much, Curtis. This was awesome.
Anytime. Thank you. I'll chat with you probably in a bit and let you know how everything's going, so.
Okay.
Alrighty. See ya.
Thanks so much, Curtis. All right. Cheers.
If you so much as snorted, giggled, or felt joy in your cold little heart, tap that like button like it's your ex's new rebound, slap that subscribe button like you mean it, and sashay over to my Patreon to toss a coin at your local chaos gremlin, me. Interviews, reviews, and utter nonsense await. Come for the content, stay for the drama. Until next time, stay dramatic, stay fabulous, and Max, if you see me auditioning for Benvolio 2 Electric Boogaloo, just let me have this one.